I felt at some point imposter syndrome, calling myself a professional dancer when there's people who have been doing it consistently since 13, and they went to Juilliard and they went to the conservatories, and now they're auditioning for Broadway, right? And I felt a bit of imposter syndrome calling myself CEO. For the longest time, I called myself principal, president, founder, CEO. I have a business school degree. Why did that feel so hard? I got to a point where I was okay with both, and then I was like, you know what? I am going to present all of her to you all.
Hi, friends, and welcome to the Next Best Thing podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Cline-Thomas. Now, I'm here to help you live the life that you design instead of choosing a life that you think you have to settle for. Let these conversations be your guide. And guess what? You don't even have to take notes because we do it for you through our newsletter called Next Nuggets that's delivered to your email inbox every single Wednesday. We share the key takeaways from the episode and outline the steps you can take today to get you from where you are to where you want to be. To sign up, super easy. Go to nextbestthingpodcast.com or check the show notes to sign up. All right, today we're going to talk about something that I actually struggle with. I'm still struggling with it in this moment, and that's how to introduce myself. I go to a lot of networking events, and the first thing you have to do is introduce yourself. So, of course, I create and host this podcast, which I love and I'm so proud of, and it adds value, but it's not exactly how I make my money. I make my money doing corporate media training and some other things, right? But to me, every single thing that I do is under the umbrella of storytelling. I'm just storytelling for different stakeholders on different platforms. And that's the whole reason why I went to launch into this entrepreneurial journey in the first place, because in my last career, I was so restricted and I could only do really one thing in one specific way. But the reality is that if you can't really introduce yourself and connect the dots succinctly to another person, then they don't know if they want to work with you. They don't know if they could help you. They don't know how to add value, how they can bring you up in other conversations. And ultimately, it could cost you money on the back end. So that's why Tricia Taitt's story really resonated with me. She's had a career on Wall Street, but she's also a professional dancer that's even toured with a Broadway musical. A layoff during the Great Recession ended up becoming a gift for her that's allowed her to lean into both passions. Or as her book title explains, she's dancing with numbers. As a CEO of FinCore, an outsourced CFO services company. And she'll explain what that is. And so in this episode, Tricia really talks about how she is able to bring her whole self to her work and make a cute coin in the process. Because over here, we don't believe that being yourself should cost you money. So go ahead and get into this conversation with Tricia. Tricia, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy to have you here and to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here and have this conversation with you as well.
Yeah. I want to take us back to 2008, 2009, right? You were working in the banking industry when the recession hit. Tell us first, how did you enjoy kind of working in the banking industry? Kind of what were you like at that point?
I was reflecting on this recently. I was a pretty intense person, and you kind of have to take on that demeanor when you work in Wall Street and corporate finance. After Wharton undergrad, I worked at Merrill Lynch for 4 years because that's what everybody did. Everybody either went to investment banking, sales and trading, or consulting track. And I picked the sales track on the private client side. And so I did that for 4 years. And when I went back to business school, I was like, I'm not going back to the trading floor, but I want to do something more meaningful in finance, whether that's like finance for Victoria's Secret or Disney or some sort of fun company. I did not intend to go back to a bank, but I ended up I took the I say the easy way out, but I got an internship at Citibank, and then that turned into a full time opportunity in a program at the time that allowed you to work with different CFOs of different departments within Citigroup. And that was very interesting because I worked in the liquidity and balance sheet area right as like all of the banks and broker dealers started to fail. So the CFO of Citibank was constantly being called into like S&P and Moody's and the rating agencies in order to validate that the company was strong enough to support itself. Once I was in that department, I kind of saw the writing on the wall in terms of just what was going on with a lot of financial institutions at that time, right? And so then eventually we hit a Great Recession. They lay off a bunch of people like myself in banks and broker dealers. And so now there's a sea of us that have no idea what we're going to do with ourselves. Now, simultaneously in my mind, I was praying to figure out a way out of corporate because I didn't love the I don't want to say the harshness of it, but I'm a person that wants to have impact and purpose
Mhm.
in my life. And I didn't see me moving basis points and looking and analyzing multi-million, multi-billion dollar P&Ls as having impact, like me having impact in the world, right? And so I wanted to do that, but I didn't know how, and I didn't know how to jump off of the treadmill, of that Wall Street treadmill that I was accustomed to being in. And so the recession gave that opportunity, and I was laid off December 2009. And now I wasn't making a paycheck because I wasn't prepared for that either mentally. Well, mentally, financially I was, but mentally
Mhm.
I was like, wait, I'm not making a paycheck. What does
Right.
that mean? Um, but I was, but I figured out, you know, what to do next to fill the time. I have a passion for something completely different than math and numbers. And I figured, all right, I'm going to just take a breather and I'm going to spend some time in that. And that's a passion for dance. And I started taking dance classes in the morning because that's when the professionals take it. I
Mhm.
started going to Broadway auditions, had no idea what I was doing or what I needed. I was just going to see what it was like. I had always wanted to try that in my life, either that or something in commercial in LA. And I just went in and I just immersed myself into the whole experience. Simultaneously, I was part of this program that was run by, well, that was inspired by Michael Bloomberg, who was mayor of New York at the time.
Mhm.
And the program was set up for Wall Street refugees to
I love that Wall
find,
Street refugees.
yeah, that's how I'm starting to introduce myself as a Wall Street refugee turned entrepreneur.
Got it. Got
Um,
it.
so this program helped Wall Street refugees prepare for work in non-traditional backgrounds, and they allowed us these 10 to 12 week consulting engagements. And the non-traditional backgrounds were either working with nonprofits, startups, um, green tech, new media, like that sort of world. And there was one engagement with a dance company. So which one you thought I chose? I chose the consulting engagement with Martha Graham Dance Company. And that was my first foray into getting behind the scenes of how do you financially manage a smaller budget entity.
But before we
This,
get there, because I
yeah,
want I want us to dig in, but I want to stick a pin in that, but go back to dance to really
okay.
establish what it means in your life. You had been dancing since you were 5 years old. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that you loved. When it came to a layoff, layoffs are hard, even if you are like, I didn't really want to be here anymore. Anyway, like they're always really hard, and especially, which is why I wanted to have the conversation now, is that a lot of people are experiencing layoffs yet again. You know, we're not in
Yeah.
the recession, but people are experiencing widespread layoffs right now. And how did
Mm-hmm.
leaning into dance kind of help you process this moment in your life?
Oh man. How it helped me process it is one, uh I dance is it's a meditation, and it gets you out of intense mental spaces. If you're a type A personality, it will get you out of that intensity and that anxiety. It's great for your body. It forces you to breathe, which also adjusts the nervous system as well. So there are many like health wellness modalities to it.
Mhm.
um, I continue to dance to this day. I'm not performing as much, but I still dance train because it's very critical to who I am as a person. I really feel like it's the air I breathe. I have great thoughts in the middle of it, after it. I don't think about what's stressing me out while I'm in the middle of it. And so during that transitionary process of not really knowing what's going to happen next, I just knew I didn't want to go back to Wall Street. um, I dove into it. The other thing for me personally is, when I was younger, I wanted to I wanted to pursue a full time dance career. But being a first generation American with Caribbean parents, dance is not considered a real job.
Mhm.
And so I defaulted on the second thing that I was good at, which was math and numbers, which transitioned itself into a career in business. But that love for dance never died. It kept coming back, right?
How?
And it kept coming back in the form of, so from 5 to 12 I danced, and then when I went to boarding school at Andover, I did sports. So I tried
Mhm.
sports. I thought I was going to be maybe an athlete.
Mhm.
That didn't work. That didn't work out. I got shin splints. um
I
what
knew it was track. I knew.
I got shin splints. I was in the whirlpool. I was like, okay, that's not gonna work. When I got to college, I was at Wharton, but my saving grace, because Wharton was super intense. The undergraduate program
Mhm.
is way more intense than the MBA program. Um, the balance for me, spiritually and mentally, was an African dance group called African Rhythms. And so being in that group for 4 years opened me up to the world of African dance. It was a spiritual journey for me too. And that's where I like rekindled the love for dance. And I eventually became a professional African dancer and was on, a Broadway musical that was based on the life of Fela, which is a Nigerian artist. So that time in college manifested into something beautiful later on in life. But the pandemic, not the pandemic, the recession
Mhm.
gave me the opportunity. Actually, before the recession, last connection point with dance is, um, I did that 4 years in college. I tried to continue dancing when I came to New York and I was working at Merrill Lynch, but Wall Street took over my life.
Yeah.
When I was in business school, I was having this internal turmoil. And now I know what it's now I know what it is. Now I know how to identify it. But in my late 20s, I didn't know how to identify it. And I firmly believe that when you are meant to do something and you are meant to shift and change in your life, there's going to be upheaval. And I call it the tectonic plates
Oh, yes.
inside of you start to shift, like the tectonic plates of the earth, and that's what causes an earthquake, right? So when
Mhm.
those tectonic plates start to like break apart and shift and do, like, there's a reason for that, and you got to listen to it. And sometimes we fight against it, and that's when
Yeah.
we get into like anxiety and stress and all of those things. And tectonic plates were happening, shifting within me my second year in business school. And I didn't want to go back to finance and Wall Street. I just
Mhm.
didn't know how to transition. Fast forward, I got the employment letter to work at Citi post MBA. Exciting, 6 figures, love it. And simultaneously, I auditioned for a company in North Carolina, a dance company in North
Mhm.
Carolina. And I said, what are the chances that the Citigroup is going to allow me to defer a year of employment so I could do this thing? There was one decision maker, thank God. She didn't have to speak to a super HR person. And she said, go ahead, you should. And the wonderful thing is, she was also thinking of transition in her life. So she connected with what was going on.
Mhm.
And I went and I danced with this community company for a year. I cut off my hair. I went natural. I was a full time dancer from 9 to 5. The aches, the pains, the making as least money as I've ever made, as little money as I've ever made in my life. And that switch was turned back on. But it was like, at that point, it was like, we got to do something.
Mhm.
It was like, I'm not letting you go. We got to figure this out. Somehow we need to have a relationship with dance. And so after that year, and I worked at Citigroup. When I was working at Citigroup in the evening, I would take dance classes. I joined a dance company in New York City that I have been with for 15 years. I'm not dancing with them, performing with them now. Um, and that's how like that light came back on, so that by the time we got to 2009 and I got laid off, I was already in mode of discovery of what's going to happen with my dance self. Like
Mhm.
how am I going to feed her, cuz she needed to be fed and she continues to need to be fed. And the wonderful thing is, during the pandemic, I found a way to merge my creative dance person
Mhm.
and my finance person together, because it felt confusing. Like both parts of myself felt confusing to present to the world. And then
That's
the world was confused on how to connect with me. They were like, "Oh, you do finance work for just dance companies?" No, that's not just what we do. I'm a dancer and I run a CFO company.
Hey, real quick, I hope you're enjoying this conversation. If you could just take a second and hit that subscribe button, it'll make sure that you never miss another conversation. It can get this type of content in front of more people. So, again, just hit subscribe. I really, really appreciate it. All right, back to the conversation. Yeah, that's what that resonates with me, because that's one of the hardest things that I didn't anticipate in my transition, is really had I love to do different things, but
Mm-hmm.
how to talk about it, because to me it all comes together. It is all storytelling. But
That's
like,
right.
I do this podcast, but how I get money is something different, right? But
Right.
to me, it
That's
is
fair.
all storytelling, and I stumble and fumble and bumble when I have to like explain to people. I just leave stuff out, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
your story really resonated with me, because I'm like, wow, she has like seamlessly kind of put this together in a way that I completely get and understand. But in doing like more background research about you in preparation for this, you had said that there was a point, though, that you felt like you kind of didn't fit. You were, your business school, like you didn't want to go to reunions because your business school people wouldn't really get the dancer
Yeah.
you, and the dance community, you weren't, you were older at that time for in dance terms, right? Like you were
Yeah.
older
Yeah.
than other people in dance terms. So you were kind of an outlier there too. How did you reconcile that?
Man, it was challenging. um and I would say, people should have grace with themselves when they're trying to figure this out. You're right. The circles that I rolled in as a Wharton undergrad alum and a Fuqua MBA alum is very different than Broadway dance people, right? Broadway dance people are yoga, Pilates instructors. By the way, I became a Pilates instructor at some point, and I was teaching at Equinox. Nannies, bartend, like that's the life, right? They make a dollar stretch. The passion is intrinsic, right? So they're not dancing and rehearsing and sweating and spending all of this money because they're gonna make six figures. they're
Correct.
they're doing it out of the passion and the love, with the hopes of getting something big, right? They take a lot of no's to get to a yes. There has to be a patience. They're very risk taking. My other world is like, MDs and MDs at banks and doctors and lawyers, and it's a whole, and everybody's into lifestyle and traveling, and right. So I have both, and the two worlds didn't feel like they came together and they fit. So while it would seem natural that I would start an accounting and financial consulting company for creatives and nonprofits, that was not my intention. That was not my the what I created. And so it took me 5 years to like settle into um, not having imposter syndrome around both. I felt at some point imposter syndrome being calling myself a professional dancer when there's people who have been doing it consistently since 13, and they went to
Mhm.
Juilliard and they went to the conservatories and now they're auditioning for Broadway, right? And I felt a bit of imposter syndrome calling myself CEO. For the longest time I called myself principal, president, founder, CEO. I have a business school degree. Why did that feel so hard? Because most people who come out of business school go to corporate route and become
Mhm.
VP and managing director. Nowadays they're becoming CEO, but when I started, it wasn't, right? So I got to a point where I was okay with both, and then I was like, you know what? I am going to present all of her to you all. And during the pandemic, which really was triggering for me, um, I did some soul searching. I
Mm.
found an amazing brand strategist. I was referred to an amazing brand strategist person, and she takes the industry you're in, and she tells you to twist your message. Her organization, plug for her,
Mhm.
um, Julie Cotonou, Brand Twist Brand School.
Mhm.
And she tells you take two different industries that don't seem related in order to bring them together, right? To find your marketing message, your pillars, your blah, 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 blah. And for me, I already had that, dance and finance. I just
Mhm.
didn't know how to bring it together. And through that process came FinCore. I was also looking for a new name, a new
Mhm.
DBA, because Art and Money Matters LLC was confusing to people.
And that
But
was the
it's
name
what
of your
it,
first business.
well, that's the name of the legal entity,
Okay.
Art and Money. Because for me, when I started my business, that's what matters, art and money. So I was being literal when I, right, created my legal entity, right? That's what you do in your first few years of
Yes.
business. I didn't know about creating a brand, right? And so 5 years later, the brand mission, the brand voice, it's all connected. The colors, it's all very connected right now. And I'm thankful to, the brand twist experience for helping to unleash that. And so now we have the brand FinCore, which is short for financial core, which came out of me thinking about my dance experience and what I have to do in order to be ready for performance pitch level. It's a lot of developing the body and the core and being in flow with the music and things like that. And so the metaphor is in the same way that dancers strengthen their physical core in order to be at peak performance, business owners must strengthen their financial core to grow and scale to peak performance. And that's what we help business owners do. Because when I go into a business, whether they are $500,000, $5 million, $20 million, the financial department is always the weakest link. And I see that I could support our company can support them in strengthening that. And so out of FinCore came the new website, came my book,
Mhm.
like it continues. And then it's about to create a LinkedIn live or some kind of podcast or something. But
Yeah.
all of these creative projects, again, my dance self, my entertainer self, is going to spur out of me now sharing my full self, Trisha 1.0 and 2.0, in a brand that I can stand by and wholeheartedly love.
Yes, and your book, we're going to shout it out again, Dancing with Numbers, Grow a Financially Healthy Business and Choreograph the Life You Want. I want to talk
Mhm.
about that financial core that you were talking about, because I think because you have a strong financial core, it allowed
Mhm.
you not to, it allowed you to pursue dance because you had
Right.
for so many people in their lives, because the financial core is not strong, if you're choosing between the finance industry and dance is finance all day, right? Like we
Right.
just gonna have
That's
to
right.
make that a hobby. We're just gonna have to do that when we can on a Saturday morning, like
That's right.
once in a blue moon. But because your financial core was strong, you were able to give it more of
Hmm.
yourself, and it was able to give back to you. So what were some of the things that you do or had done to put
Hmm.
yourself in such a good position?
Okay, so the first thing I did, I maxed my 401k when I was in corporate at the age of 21. So I started maxing from that
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And I always saved my bonus. I never spent my bonus. Because the goal was to always, I don't like to live paycheck to paycheck. I don't like somebody telling me I can't travel to wherever place and have whatever experience because I love travel. Um, And my grandmother, one of the things that she always said is for every dollar you make, save 60 cents and live on 40 cents. So I always lived below my means and I always saved my bonuses. So the bonuses, I wanted to create a savings because eventually I wanted to buy a place. Like that was my first goal. Haven't bought a place yet, but it's in the docket. Um, that savings from Merrill Lynch turned into money for business school. And then out of business school, that savings after working at Citigroup was supposed to be the fund for the house. But then I got laid off. So it became the fund for the figure out phase, right? Before I started my business and while I was dancing. And while I was dancing, I was doing part-time a lot of these different consulting engagements with different companies like Martha Graham, like Harlem School of the Arts. So I was making a little bit of money there and I was teaching Pilates. So I was making a little money there. So in all of these things, I always saved a percentage of what I was making and I always have a bucket of cash. Now, whether the cash is yielding the most at any one time, we don't know. But I like to have a good amount of a cash stash, right? And then I can pull from that cash stash when there's a slowdown. Um, it is difficult or challenging to manage savings and a bucket of money to invest in something, right? And that is, I know, a struggle that a lot of business owners have, right? I need this money to operate and I need this money to grow or invest in more people or scale, right? So how do we generate more profits and stuff like that without like investing in stock market?
Hmm.
So that's what I leveraged for myself. Those are the things that I employed for myself, and I stayed personally diversified. Um, but I think once you're a business owner, you have to do extra because when you're applying for a home or something like that, the only thing you have is your business tax return and the profits that you make in the business and what you pay yourself, right? Um, so that with that in mind, I also came up with this like calculator to help business owners figure out like what's the minimum revenue they have to make in order to cover the business and cover what they need to to choreograph their life,
Hmm.
right? To the point of it. So those are the tactics that I used and some of the principles I still keep to this day. Like I live below my means. I have no ego around lifestyle, though there are certain things that have to be maintained. Um,
Right.
and you can't have both while you're
Yeah.
building,
Yeah.
right? Or else, go back and work for corporate or somewhere where
Right.
you could just maintain this lifestyle.
Yeah, 100%. What did you learn
Mhm.
about yourself through dance that the finance world, um, and that path could not teach you?
Grit, grit, problem solving, emotional intelligence. Just as a business owner, I was telling somebody this last week. No, yesterday, in fact. uh, I gave a client feedback. Well, so they took on a client which happened to be a friend of mine,
Hmm.
and the client is a corporate client. And my friend is at the corporate client. Okay, so they secured a deal, and my friend gave me feedback to give, not to give to the client, but they gave me feedback. I shared it with my client. The difference between corporate and a small business owner is that with corporate, and when they close a deal, they have all of the details and the specifications and everything ready to go because they have corporate money behind them. They have thousands of employees behind them. They can run and execute. Small business owners don't always have all the resources at the same time, but we could figure that shit out.
Right.
Okay.
Sure. The goal is to
close. Right. The goal is to close the deal, and sometimes to make yourself a little bigger than you are able, and then go back and find the resources.
Yes, exactly.
Right? That hustle, I don't even want to call it hustle mentality because it puts us in a place of scarcity, but that figure outedness. Is that a word?
Yeah, we'll make it a word. We'll make it a word today.
That level of grit and I'm gonna figure this out. I did not have that just because I had an MBA. It was like, here's the plan, and I'm going to work the plan, and I can't see anything outside of the lines.
Right.
No, I color all the way out the lines. Everything is up for negotiation. Everything is a possibility.
Right.
Every conversation could turn into an opportunity. We figure stuff out. And I fully appreciate that. And then entrepreneurship is going to stretch you because invariably you're going to bump into some part of your business that is not your forte. For many people, it's finance.
Yes.
That's where you hire us.
Yes.
For some people, it's technology. And so people dealing with like AI, they're like, oh my God, I have to deal with operations, like whatever is not your forte when you're, especially in the beginning of your business and you have to wear all the hats. Or sales wasn't my thing. Now it feels natural because I bring my performer self into it, and I am bringing my authentic self. But I just wanted to be in spreadsheets, and I just wanted to do that work. I didn't want to have to go get a client and network, but it stretches you.
It certainly does.
Yeah, there's so those are the things that those are the grit, the figure outedness, the stress, the stretch, sorry, and the ability to take on risks like every day, and deal with the unknown. Those are skills that I'm not sure I would have gotten in finance, or it probably would have taken longer than it has these past 8 years. Yeah.
That I hear all of that. Our last segment is called ACT Up, ACT. Those are my initials, where we talk about how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And so in your book, again, Dancing with Numbers, what are some steps people can take right now to dance with their numbers so they can have more freedom to pursue their passions?
Love it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the larger theme of the book, which answers this question, and then a mini theme within the book.
Okay. So
in the large context of the book, there are 3 sections, and each section has 3 chapters. This is my financial self that did the 3s and 3s. Okay, so the sections are stretch, strengthen, and soar. Also metaphor for dance. In the strength section is the mindset part. When I interviewed the 20 business owners for this book, I asked them all, what are your earliest memories in childhood of money? And then second question was, how does it manifest itself today in your business? A lot of people are not aware of how who they are around numbers has a lot to do with how they learned about numbers in the beginning. And they have not connected the dots. And I felt like in the conversation with these business owners, it awakened a part of their brain that they weren't aware of. Old habits, destructive beliefs around numbers and stuff that they had either worked out or they weren't aware of, right? So I would say the first thing is think about how, what are some destructive beliefs around money that you learned in childhood that you are bringing into your business today? Because if you're not aware of it and you don't free yourself of it, there is no financial literacy course that you can take to help you get better if you haven't unlocked that and you're not working with it. So that's the stretch. And then the strengthen is, now that you got that, You come and take all my workshops and trainings, and then you get the you get the food on how to manage cash flow and profits and how to grow your business and manage business debt or leverage business debt in order to grow and scale, right? So that's the strengthen. And then the soar, for the business owners that had multi-million dollar businesses, they spoke about the additional things that help them grow and scale, like the people they surrounded themselves with, like the additional activities that they did, whether it was nonprofit or it was, therapy or mindset mapping, those kind of activities. It was connecting with themselves and the authenticity of who they are, or connecting with their company. I remember one restaurateur. He was an artist. He was a accidental entrepreneur, and there was he loved creating the cocktails in his restaurant, and then he realized there was one cocktail that people loved, but that he hated selling it because it was like the cheapest, and it wasn't one of the more high end cocktails that he designed. But from a business perspective, it generated the most profitability. And so they focused on making the best tasting drink with the cheapest ingredients, and coupled that with a burger that was popular. And then one summer he saw sales out like people out the door, and then he made a whole Thursday night around it, right? That is a business decision. Sometimes you got to make a business decision that was tied to him listening to the community for the benefit of your business to get to the next level, right? And it forced him to be out of his creative self. So that is the higher level theme of the book, to give you the answers, the stretch, strengthen, and the soar. And then within the book, there's a path to financial freedom, which are like my 6 steps to profit method, to growing a profitable business. And at the heart of it is innovation. And how can you innovate within your business in order to grow and scale? And the way to innovate is to be very clear on what is the pain point you alleviate or the problem you solve for a person. Because if you are not doing these 2 things, and I learned this later on in my life too, I was like, oh yeah, everybody needs financial literacy, and what we do in financial consulting, they must, but nobody's buying must, right?
Right.
What they buy is, I help you feel confident around your numbers, right? What they buy is, I help you grow your business so you could pay yourself a bonus. I help you increase profits 20 to 30% so that you can afford to hire that next key person that's going to take you to the next. That's what they're buying. They're buying my solution. I'm a solution. My company is a solution
Yes.
to their problem or alleviating a pain point. And so I have a lot of, when I bump into newbie business owners, when I'm speaking, and newbie business owners, and they're like, I just need more sales, more marketing. It's not just sales and marketing. Sometimes it's the product and the service that you're selling, and the thing that you say you're solving for, no one really wants or really cares, you know. And so creating something innovative, and I go through like these 10 innovation types and things like that, um, is a pathway to profitability.
Tell everybody where they can get the book, how they can work with you.
Okay, wonderful. So the book is on Amazon. And this summer I narrated the audiobook. So if you're like me and you prefer to listen to the book as opposed to there's a hardcover. So it's on Amazon. And if you'd like to work with us, you can find us on fincorestrong.com. That's FINCORE strong, right? .com. And then I am also on LinkedIn, Tricia MT, as you see here at the bottom lower left. So that's how you can meet with us. And I would just quickly say our process is that I do a 30 to 45-minute strategic conversation or call. I do not call it a free consultation. I don't even call it a consultation. It's a strategy call, because what invariably happens is, whether we book the client or not, they walk away with a roadmap of what are the next steps to take to grow and scale their business. hopefully we can be the ones that help you, and you are ready for a relationship. You have to be ready for a relationship with a CFO, either me or another CFO on my team. But it is a strategy. It is a strategy call. So I'm digging into the numbers and your information and stuff like that. So I like to tell people that, because they feel like it's going to be like a on the surface 15-minute. No, I go in a little bit.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Next Best Thing with Andrea Cline-Thomas, a Mountain Court Media production. The music was written, recorded, and produced by Gavin Casey, also known as Dark Purple. Now, if you like what you heard, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and write a comment on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to share it with friends. Now, I hope this episode helps you on your journey. See you next time.